complex narratives of being taken by alien beings into UFOs on beams of light.
The Air Force is trying to cover up with a picture of Venus and the moon.
From my own point of view, I'm going to be very disappointed if UFOs turn out to be nothing more than visitors from another planet, because I think there could be something much more interesting.
I'm not telling you that. The United States government is telling you that.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. Thank you so much to everyone that's here in the live chat. I really appreciate it. This is going to be an interesting conversation, as it always is with my guest today. So Matt Ford is actually joining us from, he's out of town traveling. So this will be a bit of a shorter interview than normal. So we'll be looking at sort of 30 to 45 minutes. I just really appreciate Matt being able to join us. So as always, guys, if you have any questions that you'd like me to ask during the conversation, please pop them in capital letters. It helps me sort of see them better. And yeah, please keep the chat cool, calm and collected and respectful. And it'll be great. It'll go smoothly. So let's not waste any more time. Let's welcome back my good friend, Matt Ford.
Vinny, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm coming to you from an undisclosed location, so I can't tell you where I'm at. I'd have to kill you if I did. So
let's get them all talking. But no, I do appreciate you joining me. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, man.
Likewise, yeah. I'm always happy. As I think I've told everybody a bajillion times, you were, I think, or actually, I know you were the very first interview that I ever did on this topic when you came on the Good Trouble show, and I have to tell you, I was so freaking nervous. I was like, oh my god, I hope I don't f this up. So anyway, yeah, man. So it's so good to come back on with this topic. It is such a team effort, and that's why I love the collaboration and supporting of each other's podcasts and YouTube shows and whatnot. And the more quality content like there is with your show that's out there, and the more people that are not exposed or track this subject, it's great for getting the word out on what's going on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you mentioned, yeah, it was great to be the first guest on your show and to have been on since then. But you know, the caliber of guest has certainly increased since you spoke with me that first time. And you know, you've had recently some absolutely stellar interviews. So I'd just like to sort of reflect on some of those first of all, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Starting off with your interview with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, which, you know, to have a senator on a UAP podcast is unheard of. And, you know, I think it says a lot about the seriousness of it as well. So did you have any kind of major issues arranging the interview and putting it all together? Was it a lot of work?
It was a lot of work, and it took quite a long time. You know, what most people don't know is that, you know, we also have an organization where we do political messaging for Democrats, and that we started doing that during the 2020 election cycle. So it was being involved with that, and I think we were probably like the fourth largest media producer, especially on Twitter. So with that opened up a lot of doors politically, sort of being involved in political influencer groups. And so this was something that had been in discussion for a very long time. And I think a lot of it was just for them finding the right, or when they felt was the sort of right time for her to, you know, come and talk about it. And but yeah, it was great. You know, this country, well, you know, the world really owes a huge debt of gratitude to herself and her staff and what they've done on this particular topic. I know a lot of the debunkers will say, you know, this, I think, you know, one gentleman we all know said something that it was along the lines that her staff got snowed under, what's the word? Fooled into thinking that this UFO thing was all hype, or it got them convinced, and then they convinced the senator, and these staffers didn't know what they were doing. And the thing that these staffers, they all, many of them that are involved in a particular topic, they all, if they're dealing with national security or in intelligence, they hold they hold clearances.
Yeah.
And they are not going to get their boss into trouble by sending them on some wild goose chase. These staffers are very involved. They're very, very smart. In particular, Senator Gillibrand's staff, they're amazing people, and they're engaged, and they're doing what they're doing, really good things for the country and really the world on this particular topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought the interview was great, and I know there was some negativity, let's say, shared about maybe sort of the certain line of questioning and stuff. Is there anything you can kind of say towards that?
Yeah. So all of these politicians, with the exception of Congressman Tim Burchett, who we've tried to get on our show, they have to be very careful about how they talk about this. And in particular, in my personal opinion, Senator Gillibrand is not going to do something that's going to get in front of the White House or it's a sticky subject. I mean, if you think about it, if you're the U.S. government and you're aware that for 80 years the government has been lying to the American public, you have to sit in their shoes and go, okay, how are we going to unwind this ball of yarn and not do damage to do damage to people's faith in government? And of course, we all know that is an issue right now anyway. So it's a really complex issue in my opinion. So for instance, going back to our interview, so what I did is I gave them a heads up of general topics I wanted to talk about that I felt confident that she would be able to answer. So, saying, hey, do you think there's a crashed off-world vehicle in Area 51? She's not going to answer that. So the point was to cover as much of the topic that I was confident she could discuss. And so I think it's like with anything, and of course everybody wants to know everything and they want to know it now, and if they're disappointed in what somebody answers, they're gonna go rage tweet on Twitter and all of that, and it's there are questions I wanted to answer, I wanted to ask, but I knew it just wasn't going to happen. So we all want the keys to the kingdom and want to know everything right away, and I'm certainly one of them. But our hope is that there will be other appearances by her on our show.
Yeah, exactly.
We are huge fans, and her staff, they are fantastic, and they are well aware that something's going on, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to build these relationships and not like scupper them at the first chance, Right, exactly. And again, it was you were limited for time, and it would have been, awful to just have a full interview of no comment or I can't answer that. I understand.
I know one criticism that I saw somewhat was that, why didn't you ask follow-up questions? So the risk, everybody wants a piece of the senators, any senator or congressman's time. They're very, very busy people with topics outside of UAP, right? So the last thing you want to do is ask a question and then do one or two follow-ups, and before you know it, your time's over, and then you haven't really covered it. So it was important that we get through cover as much ground as we were able to in the allotted time that we had with her.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
But
like,
I
you said,
thought, yeah, and again, it was, as you mentioned, this is the first time a United States senator has come on on any media program to discuss UAP at length. So so I think that was it was certainly a win for us, but I think moreover it was a win for the community. And the when other people in politics see that someone of her stature was willing to come on and discuss this difficult topic, that hopefully will make it easier for other politicians to come to the same decision and realize, what, this is a good thing to come and talk about.
yeah, absolutely. And she certainly doesn't show any signs of slowing down either. She's on
No.
the ball, keeping a very close eye on Arrow and what Dr.
Right.
Kirkpatrick's doing. And speaking of Arrow, you've had a couple of the whistleblowers. I still don't like using that word, but both Mario Woods and Robert Salas you've spoken to. So let's just talk about the conversation you had with Mario Woods. Are you able to just give us first of all, a brief overview of what happened to him and any kind of takeaways from that conversation?
Sure. Yeah, his was one of our favorite interviews as well. So Mario Woods was an above ground security police officer at a Minuteman nuclear ICBM base. I'm blanking on which one he was stationed at. And I believe it was either 1977 or 1978. And, these guys, so the way these bases are laid out, you have what's called a launch control center, or LCC. And down below, 60 feet below, are two people in a capsule. And they have under their control 10 Minuteman ICBM intercontinental ballistic missiles, nuclear tipped missiles. So there's a shack at the top of this, above ground, where the security force is stationed. I think it's like 6 people, I believe.
Right.
And these are the people that are in charge of protecting the LCC and then the launch facility, or the where the missiles are. So if somebody's banging on a missile door, they get deployed to go and figure out what the threat is and neutralize it if need be. So he was on duty one night, and he saw he went outside and saw this light in the distance. And at first he thought it was a helicopter, but then he noticed the light wasn't moving and it was just stationary. And out where he was at, there's literally nothing out there. So it's not like you see city lights or drones. I mean, it's before drones. Anyway, so there are all these floodlights that surround the launch control centers. So he goes in and he flips the switch several times, X number of times, and he walks outside, and the object flashes the equal number of times back. I think he said he did it a couple more times. And he had one of his fellow police officers come out and look at the thing, and the guy kind of like blew it off. So if I recall correctly, a couple hours later, he around midnight or so, or something like that, he had been in after the thing. I think the light, he said, went away or something like that. So he goes in for a couple hours, watches some TV. And back in those days, there was no cable or anything like that. You only had 3 main channels. And at midnight, that's when the programming would end. They'd play the national anthem, and then it would just be noise. Anyway, he gets his alert phone or whatever goes off and this is connected down to the 2 launch control officers, and they tell him that that internal and external intrusion alarms have gone off at one of the launch facilities. So, so around these silos, they're fenced off, and there's an array of sensors that warn that something has gone onto the property. And it's not that big of a footprint, but from what I understand, things like jackrabbits or whatever can set this off. So it was a somewhat common thing. They would still have to go in and look at what was causing the alarm. But what also went off was a internal intrusion alarm. So series of sensors within the missile silo itself that indicates that somebody or something is walking around, and that never happens, from what he said. So he was sent out to him and his partner were sent out to go look at this. This was considered one of the most serious alarms for anything. And he went out there. They drove out there. I think it was like a 5-minute drive or something like that in their pickup. And they came out there, and there was a large spherical, I think it was red, glowing object right above the launch facility that he said was like the size of a Walmart. Wow. And so his partner was just frozen in terror. And next thing he knows, he looks out to the left of at his driver's window, and he sees these three beings approaching the truck, and then he blacks out. Next thing he remembers, him and his partner are located about 5 miles away next to a dam. Their truck had been completely moved, and you really just, and I'm as we said, I'm going to recommend Mario come on your show, but it is one of the most compelling stories I have ever heard. And when you listen to him talk, it is just, I don't know how anyone would disbelieve what this guy says. Right. And and the thing to keep in mind about a lot of these whistleblowers, there's no incentive for them to come forward. Just the amount of ridicule they open themselves up to.
Sure.
Is really kind of so I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but I definitely recommend people check it out. He's
absolutely.
Great.
And he's spoken to Arrow. Are you aware? Did he speak directly with Sean Kirkpatrick, and what was his kind of general takeaway from the interaction?
He did not speak to Sean Kirkpatrick. I can't say who he spoke with. Excuse me. I think I would definitely characterize what he is. My impression of his experience was that it was not particularly that great. At the end of our interview, he had some pretty pointed words. I don't want to put words in his mouth. But this guy, he's an American patriot, and I would say that overall the interactions that I've been privy to with the Air Office by some of these whistleblowers, it's not been good. And I think the statement by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick during the Senate thing really deflated and had a net negative effect on whistleblowers. So, if you think about it, so these guys, like I said, there's no incentive for them to go do this. Not like they're getting paid to show up or talk on have a phone call with these guys. And for them to go through and have their interview sort of in a way be blown off by what Kirkpatrick seemed to, or what he said about there's no credible evidence. I don't have the exact quote of anything extraterrestrial. It really deflated these guys. And I know that there are some that it's dissuaded them, people that have data to share, it's dissuaded them from coming forward. Because I'm sure, in their shoes, it'd be like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
There's one particular whistleblower that I had a very long debriefing with, and this whistleblower, he felt that they weren't prepared. They didn't ask questions to sort of verify, like, well, who is the base commander or things like that. And the sense from this whistleblower was that they were just kind of going through the motions, gathering his testimony just because, they were required to. There was just this person felt a general lack of genuine interest. And this person was ready to offer up more information and said, you want to know about this? And they would say, no, and then they would move on. So, yeah, this whistleblower was not a good experience. He didn't walk away from it feeling like it had been worth his time. That's how my impression of it would be.
Yeah, that's quite disheartening, and it seems to be from various conversations I've had with people who have spoken to some of these whistleblowers, they're all painting the same or very similar kind of picture. Well, let's move on to your recent conversation with Bob Salas. Now, everybody knows Bob's story, so we won't spend too much, or we won't go over that. But I did want to play the recording, because he actually recorded his conversation with Arrow, and then he shared this short section with you. So let me just bring this up, because yeah, I think for anyone that hasn't heard it, it's certainly interesting. Here we go. Right. Anyone in the live chat, if you have any issues with the sound, please let me know in the comments. Thank you.
Very, very interesting. Here we go.
Can I ask, will you be sending inquiries to the Air Force about the comments I've made?
I defer to Kevin on this one. Well, like, for example, like which one?
Whether or not they concur that both Echo and Oscar flight lost strategic alert during UFO sightings.
Well, so not directly. I mean, we've kind of already inquired with the Air Force several things, even less specific, like where is all the U2 footage? Literally, where'd that film go? Where is it stored? Was it ever digitized? Where might copies of it be? I'm still trying to run down questions like that, because we interviewed some former pilots who told us about events that they've witnessed and their airplanes may have captured, and testing crews, security policemen, all these different places where the Air Force may have some kind of audio visual recording of it. And part of the problem is we're talking about things that happened obviously long before any of the people currently serving in the Air Force were serving. And they're a couple of generations removed. And when you go talk to them about where are the Afotech films from the Atlas rocket launches in the early 1960s from Vandenberg, I can't find anybody that knows. And it could have been that they were disposed of so long ago that it's not even in the corporate memory anymore, or maybe they are stored somewhere. So we're still working on trying to get answers to a bunch of basic questions like that.
Yeah, so I tell you, the common thread that you hear over and over again, and my sources have reinforced that this is very true, is that the Air Force has historically not been cooperative, and still continue to obfuscate. And and I don't know what I would say, that they have a lot to hide. In particular, the long history of tampering with our land-based strategic nuclear deterrent. There's a very long history of that, and most of these guys, including I'm pretty sure Mario Woods, but I know Salas, AFOSI, actually, Mario Woods, it was the same thing, because Richard Doty was one of the AFOSI agents in the room debriefing Mario Woods, and just like Salas, they were required to sign a national security non-disclosure agreement. And excuse me, I know Robert had said the big thing that stuck out in his mind was was the part about Leavenworth on there. So it's like that's a big thing. But yeah, one of the things that I found that was really interesting is I want to know about this U2 footage, and why was that part of the conversation. Now, Robert describes his interview as being around 2 hours long, and of course we only heard a few minutes of it. But yeah, I want to know about this U2 footage. And the other thing too, there is no freaking way that footage related to this topic just hit the shredder. I can't imagine that happen. You know, I don't know. I don't have any visibility into that, but I just don't think that is, you know, that's the case.
Absolutely. I mean, I was surprised when he, you know, openly discussed other cases with Bob just freely, like the U2 and the other ones. I thought, you know, it's not in a skiff. It's not, you know, it's
right.
it's strange.
Yeah. So, there's a point I was going to make. Well, I've kind of all this traveling. I'm a bit not mentally as sharp as I like to think I am. But you know, one of the you were talking about earlier about threats of physical violence and intimidation. You know, he shared a story where I believe it was early on when he first came out. He had some kind of presentation at some conference, and of course, after his presentation, people were coming up and shaking his hand and getting photos taken, I'm sure, that kind of thing. And he said these two, I think he called them big uglies, came up to him and shook his hand. But when they shook his hand, they shook it with such strength. He felt that they were trying to impart a message. There was two men that were together, and he didn't say what they said, but what he said after, he knew right away that he was being given a message. And when he left wherever this place was, and he was walking out to his car, those two men were standing together by their car, staring at him as he got into his vehicle. He said that was the only excuse me, that was the only kind of intimidation I think he ever felt. But another thing, that's the point that I wanted to make. All of the whistleblowers that I've spoken with, one of the questions that they asked midstream in their interview with Arrow was, "Are you recording this call?" Because, you know, you think about it. For instance, Mario Woods, he was on the phone with Arrow for, I think it was 4 hours, discussing everything that went down. And halfway through the call, he said, "Hey, are you guys recording this?" And they said, "No, we're taking notes." That is a very common thread with all of these Arrow interviews. So you have to sit and ask yourself, if these guys are taking sort of witness testimony, or whistleblower, whatever you want to refer to them as, but
Sure.
They're taking any sort of historical record and they're just writing stuff down. To me, that begs to question, how much are they writing down? To what level of detail? Because I've listened to these guys speak and recount their stories. There's a lot of information packed in there. So then the question you have to ask is, what then is Arrow passing up the chain of, or if you want to call it chain of command, passing up to Congress, and with what level of detail about these particular testimonies? There have been people that, whistleblower, again, whatever term you want to use, that have testified to Arrow about legacy crash retrieval programs to a great level of detail. And the one thing I have had no visibility into is how much is being shared with Congress. It just, to me, it's odd if you're going to go to the effort of getting these people on the phone or in person, in particular, in this case, getting whistleblowers on the phone, and you don't have like a court reporter transcribing it, and they're just taking notes. I don't understand that.
Yeah, that's strange, isn't it? Yeah, it doesn't give a lot of confidence in what they're actually doing, really, does it?
Well, and I would say with the whistleblowers that I've spoken with, there is, by and large, there has not been, and I think a lot of this was tied to the hearing with Senator Gillibrand. There isn't a lot of confidence in the process. There is a lot of questioning, I think, on their part by, what Kirkpatrick's motivations are, or if his hands are being tied behind his back because of, it being under Moultrie's purview, but it just in general, it has had a detrimental effect on these veterans or people involved with these legacy programs. I don't think it's been good.
Yeah. And things seem to have died down a little bit at the moment as well. You know, I don't know if that's a general feeling, but certainly for me, it feels that way. But then the one thing that we did get was that, you know, obviously we've got the NASA live event coming up on the 31st of May, which I am just going to share my screen because I just wanted to quickly share the schedule, because it's been announced that Dr. Kirkpatrick is going to present there, which
Yes.
I think was a bit of a surprise. So let's bring that up. So yeah, here we are. So 4-hour live event, which will certainly be interesting. So we've got the full breakdown here, and there we are, 11 till 11:30. So only 30 minutes. So, you know, Dr. Kirkpatrick talking about Arrow, but I think
that's good.
It is. And you know, there's a few other standout bits here that the FAA are going to be discussing something or other. But this keeps getting me, this UAPist, whatever
what
that
is
means.
That? Yeah.
I have no idea.
Is that like the new version of ufologist, or what's yet another
it could
acronym?
Well be, yeah, because we've got here UAPist panelist presentations and discussions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's certainly good that we're getting a public access to a 4-hour event covering what they've been up to and what they may consider doing further down the line. So that's certainly going to be, you know, interesting, I find. Any further thoughts on that one from you?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this, and I think, I mean, I've been very skeptical of Kirkpatrick from the beginning, and have not understood why there's been no, you know, front-facing mechanism, you know, no easily accessible way of contacting them. Now, in the interview with Senator Gillibrand, she said if people were not interested in or didn't want to go directly to Arrow, she gave an email address to her office that whistleblowers can go directly to her office. And I've referred quite a few through a separate channel into her office as well. But yeah, you know, you never do know. You know, when I watched the Kirkpatrick thing, one of the you know, the things that I think kind of stood out to me was that it felt like he was having to that it being under OUSDINS was maybe hampering things budgetarily, and the fact that there still wasn't a website was just, you know, blows me away. But on the other side, you know, you look at, I think I forgot what his SCS number is, but you know, Kirkpatrick is like essentially the civilian equivalent of, say, like a 2-star general. So if I were the director of a program whose one of the main goals is to collect data from various people in the military, either directly or either through direct reporting or indirect reporting, I mean, the first thing I would do is put up, you know, how to get a hold of them through JWIX or some other thing. So I just have not understood why that has not occurred. I understand from what he said that it's in the works, but you know, but yeah, I do think, yeah. So sorry, it's my ADD in full effect. Yeah, I think the NASA thing I think it's great, and hopefully Dr. Kirkpatrick has some good stuff to share. I hope so. It'd be a great way to kind of turn the tide of public opinion if he, you know, really came to the conference with some good information, and I certainly hope he you know, he does to whatever extent he's allowed. But you know, with this, the thing I think to kind of keep in mind too is like all of the excuse me, all of us have been tracking this topic, and everyone in your, or most people I would say in your audience, and to a lesser degree probably in my audience, because it's a lot of political followers. But you have to keep in mind that there are a lot of people that just don't know a whole lot about this other than what they've seen in movies or you know, Discovery documentary or whatever. So I think that it is a process to acclimate the public to it, to legitimize congressional efforts or programs. So to ensure, for instance, that Arrow has the proper funding. So part of that, and I think that's a challenge for Senator Gillibrand and these others, is people in Congress that maybe don't track this topic or know very little about it. You got to sort of ease them into it, I think, to a certain extent. So, so I think that things like this press thing with NASA, I mean, I don't think they're going to be rolling out any biological entities or going outside for a big flying saucer reveal. But the fact that it's being treated with seriousness I think is really significant. And we all know there are encounters that they could be flares or drones, or there are certainly things that have prosaic explanations. Balloons, any sort, various surveillance collection platforms. But when you so you'll have people like Mick West and some of these other professional debunkers, saying, oh, it's all just balloons or seagulls or whatever. And certainly there are occasions where there are prosaic explanations for it, but you have to sit and ask yourself the question: would NASA be doing this length of discussion to only talk about airborne trash or airborne clutter or balloons or senators on both sides of the aisle? And I'm a raging liberal, but I am always happy to promote and acknowledge good work that Republicans are doing on this as well. This particular topic, it transcends party. The fact that 33 pages of legislation regarding the UAP went into the National Defense Authorization Act, it completely blows out of the water like Mick West's argument about it. Or any of these professional debunkers. So you have, and the other thing as well, I want to point out, Senator Gillibrand, Senator Rubio, you have to read in between the lines about what they're saying. Listen to, if they're talking to the press for a 3-minute soundbite or 3-minute thing, listen to the very last thing that Senator Rubio might say. And you have to do a lot of reading between the lines.
Yeah. I got a shout out to everyone in the chat here. So UAPist is actually just unidentified aerial phenomena independent study team, which
okay.
I don't know why I didn't see that, but I can always count on these guys. So thank you, everyone there. Awesome. I just want to highlight a couple of donations that have come in. So Uplifting Tweets, thank you so much. Yeah. And he says, just thanks for all that you two do. So Matt, I know you've been accused of being Uplifting Tweets. So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so that's, if it looked like I was typing, that was me actually sending you the donation. And I am Uplifting Tweets, and I do. Hey, I'm a podcast host slash maker of really great graphics. So you're welcome for that $10.
No, that's hilarious. But uplifted tweets, thank you so much, man. And then also I want to shout out Robbie Delaney, and he asks, do you feel that Arrow is nothing more than a modern day Project Blue Book with a predetermined agenda?
I don't know. I certainly hope not. I would say that there is significant congressional awareness on this topic, awareness that there's a non-prosaic, significant national security issue to be looking into all of this. So I would, with that in mind, I am skeptical that it will go down that route. But never say never. The thing to keep in mind is this whole thing, it's always a fluid situation. So, for a period of time, you're hearing from your sources, hey, something is about to happen or around the corner. And then, that timeline might shift. You're moving at the speed of government. Geopolitical things occur. It's it's hard to predict. I do feel confident that by the end of summer or the end of the year, I think we'll be having a different conversation, but nothing is ever set in stone.
Yeah. And do you think between now and the summer we'll have any more hearings? Because there was talk a few weeks ago that we were going to get some in June with, potential people speaking publicly, again, I don't want to use the term whistleblowers, but people maybe even getting subpoenaed and anything on that you've heard?
I have not. I know no more about that than I think what everyone else has seen. And I want to bring up an important point, to my fellow citizens. Everybody. It's you don't have to be a rocket scientist to find the numbers of these committees, find the numbers of these congressmen and senators, and call them up, especially people that your senator or your congressmen or women. When you call from your district, that carries so much weight, and talk to these staffers and say this is an important subject. It is wrong on so many levels for unelected people to be controlling this. That's not a democracy. That's not the way any democracy should work, and it's not their place to have control over this thing. I totally understand there are elements. I would say probably with historical crash retrieval programs and let's say that we do have off-world vehicles, there are going to be certain elements of that for national security should remain classified indefinitely. But what I would say is that the people that I speak with, and it's multiple people in the intelligence community and in defense, they are all of the opinion that there is nothing that just telling people that we are being interacted with by non-human intelligence, that is not going to jeopardize national security. And there's no reason not to level with the public about that.
Yeah. Got a great question. Diego, thank you so much for the kind donation. And he says, much love from Albuquerque. Has there been any talks about the historical side of Arrow's mission dating back to 45? NUFO HRC would be the ideal partner.
I don't know who the long acronym in the bottom is, but I haven't heard anything
no, I
at
haven't.
all. Now, I do know that what has been stated is that Kirkpatrick, they only have Title 10 authority. They don't have Title 50 authority, which is what Lou had. So it is I'm sure it's restricted his access. There was, Osvaldo posted this great video a while back of him talking to Senator Gillibrand and not confronting her on it. His intentions were good, obviously, but she said that he has had problems getting access to historical information, and there's no reason to doubt that, because that's how they've operated in the past for decades. That's not a surprise at all. So I haven't heard anything from any of my sources about it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, we do hear something about that in the future, because, it's something that we've all wanted for such a long time. Well, in the last few years, considering everything's just been 2004 onwards, and we really do want them to go back to some of these compelling cases that are quite old. So
sure.
But listen, Matt,
there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, sorry. No, yeah, no. There's a lot to I would say uncover, and and again, people involved in historical crash retrieval programs have testified to Arrow under oath, and so what else do you want to know? And I hope that people in Congress that are on SASC or on any of these intelligence or appropriations committees or armed services committees, that they are being given they're being told what Arrow is hearing from these people. I can't, people like Senator Gillibrand, she suffers no fool. She is one smart lady, and she's amazing. So I'm skeptical that they are not hearing stuff, but you just don't know to what extent. If they're just sitting there taking notes on a notepad, how much detail are they writing down? And then what is that report that they're putting together and sending up to Congress?
Yeah, hopefully we do get some clarity on that at some point in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, listen, Matt, thank you so much. I'm conscious of the time. Before I let you go, please let us know about anything that you've got coming up.
Actually, I don't. I wish I did. So you'll be the first to hear about it. Work has got me a little busy in the day job, and I'm doing some traveling right now from various undisclosed locations. I'm just joking, by the way. So visiting family, that sort of thing. So I would say in June, hopefully we'll have some great interviews coming up. We're always working on them, and these things take time, obviously. But my hope is probably our next big episode will be after this NASA hearing, so or whatever you want to call that thing. So let's hope some good things come out of that, and that we all have lots of good things to talk about.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's certainly going to be a lot of eyes on that day, on that event. So for everybody who's here watching live, thank you so much. And everybody that's listening or watching at a later date, if you go down into the description, you can go and find all of Matt's links if you're not already following him. Again, thank you all for...
tweets at uplifting tweets on Twitter. That's where you can find me.
Oh, that's so
Just
funny.
kidding. Just kidding.
Well, listen, Matt, thank you again so much, and I really appreciate you,
You're very
taking
welcome.
time for us. And
been a pleasure.
yeah, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Take
Folks,
care.
call your senators, call your congressmen. Do it.
There we go. Catch you later, guys.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.